One of the organizations that I have invested in is working on technology that you will not have a pricing solution. Pricing consideration will be taken away from humans. It's scary and exciting at the same time. Some of the things that worked 20, 30 years ago, those templates, those frameworks don't quite work. So how are we all going to shift? My approach or my suggestion for organizations or my recommendation for organizations is to...
Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Everyday AI podcast. I'm Sumner Macon and today I am thrilled to be joined by Smeet Thakkar. Smeet, it's brilliant to have you here.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
So I'm curious, we've worked together, but I've never asked properly, how did you first get into pricing? What was it that drew you into this?
Yeah, no, very interesting question. I mean, when you're young, no one really asks you, like, what do you want to be grow up? And you say, well, I want to be a pricing manager. You don't quite answer the question like that. I think pricing chose me rather than kind of me choosing pricing, if I'm honest. I think how the career started was in analytical roles, finance roles, enabled by a kind of banking and finance degree. And then I found myself getting more and more interested, more and more drawn towards the nature of the pricing role, which I think sits very interestingly between kind of finance strategy and then when you get into the B2C space, kind of the consumer psychology. So yeah, early career and then gravitating towards kind of roles that enabled commercial optimization and then more and more pricing.
And why is pricing really sort of important for you, for retailers, for consumers?
Pricing's important I'll start with organizations and then come back to me. From my experience and from my point of view, I think pricing is the single biggest lever that drives profitability. And it is also the single biggest lever that can influence market share, market penetration kind of outcomes. That's not me saying it, that's Harvard Business Review. From consumers or clients' point of view, I think I'm getting into the zone now that it's less about pricing, it's more about why value is important. So pricing is the vehicle with which value is exchanged between the provider of value and the taker of value. And so in that sense, pricing is the kind of language. And that's why it fascinates me, because it has so many dimensions to it. It's not a linear problem. And it sits at these kind of crossroads between kind of numbers, behavior, strategy, finance, micro and macroeconomics. And I found a kind of good home for my skill set, for my personality, I think. And that's why it's important to me. But again, from a personal point of view, I think there is something around kind of doing it well, doing it sustainably, doing it fairly, where I feel like people like me who not only have the skills, but also have the kind of ethos, the thinking around it. I have something more to offer than a complex financial model. And so I think that's where pricing becomes interesting for me.
And who would you say are the sort of the real heroes of pricing, like people who've really inspired you or brands that you think, well, they do pricing really well?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting question. I mean, the core philosophy I think I subscribe to is, when it's done really well, it's completely invisible. Like you don't see the price. And in that, when you take that kind of definition, kind of which brands kind of pass that. So when I think about that, Amazon, like, obviously they've got a really, solid product proposition, all of that kind of going. But when a consumer goes through the Amazon buying journey, they're so hooked on to, the ratings, what they're looking for, the product, whether it'll be, it'll arrive tomorrow, whether it'll arrive by 10 p.m. today. And then you're not thinking about whether you're paying £6.72 or £6.95. And in that sense, they seem to have kind of cracked that kind of problem. It's not rounded. They don't have a traditional mid-low, high-low strategy. They don't necessarily need to do any kind of Black Friday or other kind of promotion. So all the rules of, if you want to, play in the market, you must do this. Kind of Amazon has transcended or appears to have transcended. From what I understand, obviously, it's also very algorithmic, very machine-led, very data and metric-led, which again passes that kind of pure optimization test, so to speak. And then at the other end of the spectrum, I think there are organizations like Apple, where obviously there's a solid design-led product there, but you're not thinking about price as to why it's 719 and not 699 or not 729. But there's actually a lot of consumer psychology and analysis that has gone behind why their products are priced with the 1.9 the way they are, and then how the rest of the ecosystem works to enable the overall pricing strategy to be optimal for what they have to offer. So yeah, those two kind of really stand out. And then you have organizations like Costco, where they have a kind of old school, traditional kind of membership oriented price, which I think is a truer application of kind of loyalty price. But again, they've taken you away from actually thinking about whether you need 24 packs of crisps. But you do when you enter the store, or after you enter the store anyway. So I think there are organizations that are doing it well. I could make a list in kind of several industries and across organizations that I've come across, but I think those three particularly stand out.
Really strong. And I think one of the things you mentioned was the sort of the application of technology in pricing. And I understand you might have been running some workshops on AI and pricing. Do you think AI is going to change everything? Or maybe it already has. What are your thoughts on it?
I think AI will change everything in terms of how a pricing practitioner approaches their work, does their work. I led a workshop which was very well received. And the essence of it was, it's not about robots taking over, but it's about how the new technology augments and enhances the human kind of intelligence. But the human intelligence is going to be important, more so in pricing than other functions, because you're not a coder and you're not repeating stuff that is happened or is happening, because each context is different, each situation is different, the micro and macro economy is different. But I think what AI will do will differentiate the real human intelligence from where people were just repeating strategies that were tested last year or the year before. And in that sense, I got asked that question at the workshop as well, which is, do I think AI will replace pricing analysts or pricing managers?
Yeah.
My honest view is that AI cannot replace or will not replace pricing leaders. What AI will do will enable a system where those pricing leaders that are fluent with AI or are able to adopt AI and leverage it in the right way will replace those or get further value than those that don't. And in that sense, there will be a Darwinism kind of the new talent that comes through the ranks.
As retail evolves, we're seeing talk about agents doing some of the shopping. And certainly I use other AI to investigate it, even if I complete the transaction actually on the retailer's website. Do you think that there's use of agents by consumers would change how we think about pricing, or what are your thoughts on that?
I think the overall trajectory is towards increasing price transparency and therefore increasing commoditization, which then, when you logically step through what it actually means, we probably sleepwalk into a world which is hyper-personalized, probably unfair, until the regulation catches up. If you take an extension of the world we are in, you've deployed an agent to search for prices. The agent is learned, let's use flights because it's the most overused example. So your agent is searching for flights. Then your agent will learn that the most optimal time to search for flights is Tuesday morning because no one else does. But then all other agents have learned that. All the other agents start doing that. Then their algorithm learns that actually everyone's looking for it on a Tuesday. And then you get into the world where the bit that was creating the differentiation doesn't quite exist. So then you get into the world where which IP addresses or agents from which IP addresses are searching for flights for what destinations. And then that starts to talk to actually, where is my target customer for a particular organization? And then where do I want to invest my promotional discount?
Yeah.
Which then goes into a kind of hyper-personalized. Am I investing in some agent because, he's more likely to then buy, seat reservation, and he's more likely to buy the car hire and all of that. So from my point of view, what AI is doing is it's taking the traditional approach of trying to find a more optimal target customer or target customer base but it's burying it inside algorithms. And
Yeah.
then the agents are going to do the heavy lifting in terms of curating that and testing that and statistically testing that and repeating and refining what works better. And then the human will be managing the performance of one agent versus the other agent. Is actually, you know what, I don't think you've cracked it, so you need to learn this. Go away and learn this, and then we'll do this better next time. And because you didn't do it quite as well, I'm going to use this other agent to go and book that flight. So there is a reward and punishment mechanism that kind of happens behind the scenes to refine the kind of knowledge. But it is, we're in this world now where a lot of the pricing consideration is being taken away or will be taken away, is already being taken away from humans.
Wow, it's definitely a different world.
It is.
One thing that I'm curious is, with the introduction of new machine learning capabilities in retailers, how they can actually improve their own capabilities. I've seen real issues with the software adoption. I mean, it might be used for a little while, but then sort of fades. What's your experience been?
Yes, I mean, again, I'll dive into some examples without naming names, obviously. But there was a meme that went viral a few months ago where you had this kind of image of this really wonderful kind of looking AI, and a company is trying to adopt it, and then from behind, the kind of poor data quality is kind of holding the company back. Now we are still in this world, unfortunately, where there are companies that have kind of legacy data systems, data architectures, where they have lots and lots of data, but it is not kind of AI ready. It's not even automation ready, if I can say. And then at the other end of the spectrum, I have seen live use cases of organizations that have amazing data. Early in my career, I could have given up a kidney to get to data of that quality. But it's so fragmented, and there isn't a center of excellence or a central data optimization team layering it into appropriate kind of use cases. And so you have all of that untapped potential just there, not used, not optimized. So my approach or my suggestion for organizations, or my recommendation for organizations, is to not think in terms of tools, but think more in terms of capabilities and use cases, and find use cases that they can prove that can work, and then there's a flywheel effect to it. I have a 4-step framework for pricing, which I look to kind of embed myself, but also bring that thinking to organizations and help them on that kind of journey. From my point of view, it is really about you have your, in consulting speak anyway, you have your people, process, systems. AI follows the same thing, which is you need to bring people that are open to that world, that are going to be embracing this change is happening. So you need people around the core processes that are going to be AI friendly. You're going to have processes, that are slick. So obviously I mentioned data, so it has to be AI ready. You have to have processes that lend themselves to AI based optimization, and then systems that are ready to work with it. I'll link back to one of the organizations where there was a tool that passed its beta test and was able to make pricing recommendations twice a day. But the execution failed because the downward till systems couldn't take more than 5,000 recommendations in a day. And so, what good is that AI then? So it's things like that. If you were designing the execution system, now you would think about it very differently. You're talking kind of electronic, pricing displays, talking to kind of cloud-based, centrally managed till systems, talking to merchandising systems and pricing systems that are doing kind of the whole. And then there are kind of API-driven handshakes kind of along the way for all of it to kind of work. Otherwise, it's just another fancy tool.
Absolutely. I think that makes all the difference. The teams themselves are improving, and it's not just about the technology.
100%.
we've worked together on some of these pricing issues. What advice might you have for sort of for consultancies or people like me starting their career? What's really helpful, and indeed what isn't?
It's an interesting question. I mean, I really enjoyed working with you, hence why obviously I'm here. And we found a common ground, not just in kind of our love for pricing, but also how we thought about kind of business problems and stuff in general. But from my point of view, I guess keep it real. So whatever it is, whether I'm an advisor to a future tech kind of pricing organizations, and I'm talking directly to the chief product officer. I also work behind the scenes with consultancies when they've got specific use cases and they need someone who's kind of been there, done that, worn the t-shirt. And what I try to do and what I try to pass on is that I keep it clear. So yes, there is a narrative. Yes, there is analysis to be done, but how does it really impact in that situation, in that context? And then try to obviously bring that with the data, with the expertise, with the toolkit that you guys have. So, you work for a top tier consultancy. You all have mastered, the art, the science to do what you guys do. But underneath that, the world has shifted. The consumer has shifted. And some of the things that worked 20, 30 years ago, they don't quite work now. Those templates, those frameworks don't quite work. So how are we all going to shift our mindset, not only to work with the new age consumer, but also to work with these AI agents who are also, in effect, our consumers, because they are becoming the buyers or executioners of pricing decisions. And so it's going to be super fascinating for the next 5-10 years to see how this shifts.
Definitely. I'd love to get into some hot takes. I've got a couple of hot takes, so we're keen to get your opinion on them. So individual personalized pricing might not be very popular with consumers.
This is so emotive, but so interesting. I think individual personalized pricing done well can become a real lever of loyalty and value, e.g. Costco. Done poorly, it becomes a gimmick. Customers will then kind of withdraw from it or lose engagement with it. The regulator will start stepping in. Brands will lose credibility. And it just becomes another thing. I'll give you, look at UK grocery. Is a UK consumer really loyal to any grocer? You carry a loyalty card for all the grocers just to get the discount. So it becomes gimmicky. What my worry is in retail is that as a society, as an economy, we are sleepwalking into this territory where pricing becomes hyper-personalized, unfair in the process, and then therefore becomes gimmicky and loses credibility until someone comes and really kind of disrupts the game.
And what would you think about loyalty member pricing?
Again, loyalty member pricing, it links to this hyper-personalized.
Yeah.
So ultimately, the essence of what member pricing should be is some form of exclusivity.
Yeah.
But does that exclusivity need to be a discrimination in price question? I think that depends on your ethical stance. But could that exclusivity mean you get early access to or exclusive access to something that is post-service or something that is pre-service? Again, think Apple membership, think Amazon Prime. There are good and very different applications of member pricing. I think lots of organizations have sleepwalked into a state where they either reward inertia because a customer is only buying with them and they think that's loyalty, or they are sleepwalking into a situation where they're pricing or discounting products based on handing over the data, but then subconsciously what's that doing is it's losing the credibility on the base prices, because as the incrementality starts to dissipate, that just becomes the system, which is the base price is then inflated to make the promotion work, and then the tail starts wagging the dog, and the tail gets longer, and it wags the dog even more, and then it just becomes like this messy system which no one trusts, and then the regulator steps in and starts making in some interventions, which is never ideal.
So that then taking it all the way from sort of the super detailed, individualized pricing, think about a bit longer term commercial strategy for senior leadership. Look for those leaders who really do want to get their pricing strategy right. What does that maturity curve or organizational pathway look like? I mean, what's the lessons been from your own journey?
Really interesting question, and it's like trying to summarize 18 years and 12 industry experiences into 90 seconds. But honestly, from my point of view, I'm a huge fan of Simon Sinek. So can I start with the why? So being really intentional, being really purposeful about what you're trying to execute and why. So use any pricing theory, rounded, non-rounded. Why do you want to be rounded? Why do you want to be non-rounded? Use promotions. Do you want to be promotionally driven? Do you not want to be emotionally? Why? What is it? What is it about your proposition? What is it about your target customer or what you're trying to achieve that would work? And then you use data and hypothesis to validate or invalidate what you think, and then optimal kind of emerges from there. You yourself had an interesting post about kind of Southwest and Ryanair. They're both successful models, but who do you want to be? Yeah. What do you stand for? So from my point of view, that's the starting position. And then after that, there are enablers and there are accelerators. So we all may have worked for bosses that kind of say, well, is it going to make the car go faster? Is it going to get the boat go faster or whatever else?
Yeah.
My counter question is, is the car or the boat heading in the right direction? Because it could go faster. If it's heading in the wrong direction, that's not what you want. You actually want to slow down, turn around, and then better a slower, more purposeful step in the right direction than chaotic steps that take us round and round and round in circles. So there's that. The second is, I mentioned earlier that there's something about the foundational element. Now, the foundational element isn't just data, but obviously in the world we live in, everything is data. So the foundational element is around data capabilities. After those capabilities, from my point of view, it's about decentralizing the toolkit. I still see organizations where they've got this, huge kind of data and analytics center of excellence, and they control the budget in terms of what tools people should have and whether they're allowed to have, dashboard solution A or dashboard solution B, and they still celebrate success on adopting a particular dashboard solution, but they have, no further clarity in what they're doing to optimize their customer strategy, pricing strategy, commercial strategy, how that all kind of comes together. So from my point of view, the world I imagine is that almost like the whole tooling solution is completely decentralized. In fact, I take it a step further. One of the organizations that I have invested in is working on technology that you will not have a pricing solution. You just talk to it or type it and it will execute it.
Yeah, which is an interesting new world.
Absolutely.
And building on that idea of the new world, what do you think the future of AI means for pricing and retail? Where do we go next?
I think we have to reimagine the capability and the talent. I was actually invited to the UAE to attend and then contribute as a part of one of the workshops, which is around prompt engineering. So the Middle East are heavily investing in kind of talent that is, how do you engineer prompts? And as we are all slowly discovering through kind of various posts on LinkedIn and stuff like that, how do you do this? This is the 10-stage prompt. How do you do this? This is the kind of 2-page prompt, and you get this really nice kind of output. And then what we are, I guess, relearning is what we get out of any technological innovation depends on the quality of what we put in. And so the better quality input we have, the better quality output we have. And so the prompt engineering is going to be how that happens. And so I draw parallels across what's happening now to, let's say, what was happening to, though you might remember this was somewhere when SQL came into the pricing landscape. And it was not about trying to copy paste data from hundreds of sheets. It was about kind of, select stuff from this, where this happens. And you have to learn the syntax at pace so that you could get your hands on what you needed to get your hands on quite quickly. And so from my point of view, the new talent is going to be, okay, I no longer need to learn the syntax, but I need to learn how to synthesize this problem because, I want orders from here. I want, my financials from here, and I want here from here. And then I have to, in my head, synthesize that, okay, work with these joins and give me this clean data set. But now hang on a second. It's not about giving me the data set at all. I want you to test this hypothesis and then tell me what you can learn from the data. So the human intelligence goes from kind of level 1 to level 2 because in our day, it makes me sound old. In our day, you would have to spend hours prepping the data. Then you would have to spend hours slicing the data. And then you would say, okay, hang on a second, what is this telling me? Now you're in the world where you take data prep and data analysis almost like AI is going to have to do it and do it well, subject to good prompt engineering. And then you're going to actually regress this. What are you going to use? Logistical regression? Are you going to use linear regression? Why am I using agent A? Am I using agent B? You're going to have to reimagine that whole mindset as an individual within the space. And then as a collection of individuals, as a leader, you're going to have to say, not who's good at coding, who's going to develop or design the best AI agent in which use case, and then how do you not only leverage those human capabilities, but the technological capabilities that come with the human capabilities, so that it drives that competitive advantage or whatever else you're trying to achieve.
That's quite a view. I mean, some of the work that we're doing on conversational analytics is certainly heading in that direction. So you can just ask natural language questions and get the answer straight out. So I'm super excited. Moving from sort of the AI and pricing to AI in general, I think we're both relatively recent fathers. How do you see it shaping the world your child is growing up in? And what is it that's most exciting for you about this crazy world?
I mean, again, it's scary and exciting at the same time, right? Because you think about kind of what jobs there would be or what the economy will look like. But equally, you think about the amount of heavy lifting humans had to do. And that kind of applies through the ages, right? Like, think about, even before the technological and .com era, like the role of technology and tooling, in my view, is to reduce the human effort and to optimize and augment the human intelligence. So I guess that trend continues, but the pace of that trend, we've kind of hit like almost like we were going 30 miles an hour and now we're going to go 100 miles an hour and then suddenly we're going to be. So from my point of view, it kind of comes back to those kind of 2 or 3 themes, which is going fast is good, but are you heading in the right direction? And then kind of tools are great, but do you have the right data? Do you have the right foundations? So in that sense, what I will look to hopefully pass on to my child will be kind of, again, the core kind of economics, the core principles, the core philosophies, problem formulation, thinking about the world in terms of how it should be, first principles, and then using the tools that are available and will be there ever present to then deploy them in the right way, whether that's for educational endeavors, I don't know what other endeavors, sporting endeavors, whether there'll be an AI hackathon, I don't know what they'll have in schools, by the time my kid gets there, and then ultimately in the workplace, I can't imagine a world where I can imagine a world where there would be no line managers.
Yeah, wow.
Everyone's either a technical specialist, or you make your way and you become a leader of agents or of people who are leaders of agents. And then
Yeah.
I can imagine a world like that. I can imagine a very flat organization structure, even for a large kind of corporation, which is a CEO and maybe 10 kind of super specialists, managing that organization from start to finish.
Wow.
So, yeah,
quite a world where we need to learn to lead machines as well as men, or
exactly.
people in general. Yeah,
exactly.
Well, thank you, Smeet. It's been incredible to hear your insights on pricing, AI, and much, much more. Thank you for joining us on the Everyday AI podcast.
Thank you for having me. And I look forward to the podcast releasing and getting feedback.